Hello, YouTube. Welcome to a day of, NHL. I'm going to be discussing the pros and cons of every team of the NHL season. This is inspired by a guy I found on YouTube. I don't remember his name quite much, but I will put it in the description when I can get it. Alright. Let's just go with the standings for the 2013-14 NHL season. 2014-15 season is coming up. 58 more days. Go Bruins. And I like the Kings too, so go Bruins and Kings, I guess. And there's obviously 16 teams that make the playoffs and every year. You guys know that. Now, one team that really surprised me this year was Dallas, because at that time they hadn't made the playoffs since I think 2008, and Dallas barely made the playoffs this year. They barely did. Everybody has to admit that. Now, I think that Columbus did good. I think that Columbus did good this year. Did good last year. Not terribly good, but still they did okay. They went 43-32-7 for 93 points to clinch the playoffs. And honestly, and Washington was right outside that Dallas spot. Was 1 point away from Dallas. They could have made the playoffs, and they got past Dallas, and Dallas wouldn't have made the playoffs, and it would have been a whole different story. Now, let me tell you a team that just sucked the entire year. They sucked the entire year. Buffalo. 21-51-10. Really? I know they're not that good of a team, but still. They gotta be better than that. Like, every team has their seasons where they just aren't good, but still. Okay. Now, this is also inspired by the guy. Again, I'll put this in the description. This is totally not my idea, but I have to say, for every month, there's a team that there's going to be a pro and a con for each month for teams. Okay. There were about 82 games. 82 games. Yep. Okay. Now, we all know the four divisions: Atlantic, Central, Pacific. Atlantic, Central, Pacific, and Metropolitan. Now, let's go over the Atlantic Division first. Now, there are 8 teams in the Atlantic Division. One of them that was, okay, here's the pros and cons for the Atlantic Division in, obviously, October, the start of the season. I think from just looking at the standings from there, I'd say pros would be, this is already in, so let me get back. Just hold on a second, bear with me. Okay, I got this. Okay. Now we can, obviously, let's go back to October. Now, on October 1st, the team that started first in the Atlantic was Toronto. And Toronto, the standings that, let's see. Let's get this up here. Okay. October 8th, when the season started. Now, Toronto had played 3. Here's the thing I have to say about the pro here's the thing I have to say for the pro of October, and that is Toronto. Because they played 3 games, and they won all 3. Now, the other teams, of course, had played these games, and the other teams, of course, played 3 games, 2-1, or someone played 1, and then they had lost in OT, and won 1. But Toronto ended up winning all 3 games, and Pittsburgh and Boston were the only ones that went 2-0 in their 2 games that they played. The only one that went 3-0 in the 3 games that they played were obviously Toronto. And let's go to the end of October. Let's see what the end of October was. Now let's look at the league. The league in October at the end, San Jose was in first because they had 10, because they won 10, lost 1 in OT, and they lost 2 in OT. Now, Boston was in 15th with a 7-4 record. But now the pro for October, I'd have to say, was San Jose. They did very good. They were. Now let's get to pro for the Eastern Conference. Toronto. They ended up in 4th. That was the closest to the standings of first that I could see. Now, what you know is that the con for the Eastern for that year, for October, I'd have to say was Buffalo. Buffalo. It's just sad because Buffalo, I've seen Buffalo do better than this year. And you all know that during the season, Buffalo was the worst. The absolute worst. Now let's go to November. Pro for the East. The pro for the East was Boston. They were in 6th, 17-7. Con for the East for me, Calgary. Even though they were in 26th at the time. Now, I'd have to say, Calgary did not do good. They did not make the playoffs, but Calgary could still have done better because I've seen them do better before. They had a great team sometime. They had a great team at one point. I just can't remember because that's a long time ago, and I really don't follow any other team besides Boston, but I know that Calgary's had a good team before. And then this is going to be a long video. I tried to warn you at the end of the video, but okay, now, that was at the end. Now, the pro for the West in November, Chicago. They were in first place with a 19-4-4 record. Con for the West? Oh, I'm sorry. Con for the East was Columbus. I'm very sorry. I forgot that Calgary was in the Western Conference. I'm very sorry. And the con for the West, Calgary. And as I stated before, they didn't really have a good season. I apologize for the accidental conference mix-up. Sometimes I get it mixed up because, I get pumped up. Now let's go to December. December? Pro for the East, Pittsburgh. 29-11-1 with 59 points. Boston was 5 points behind them, but they were not the pro in December. They were in 6th, but because I'm a Boston fan, and I like the Kings too. I mean, they're pretty good. And just so Habs fans are aware, I don't like the Habs. I mean, I respect them because they're kind of a powerhouse, and they made it past the Bruins in this year, but still, I don't like the Habs. If I'm a Boston fan, I don't like the Habs. I'm sorry. But I respect them and their way of winning. Anyway, now the pro for the West. Oh, I forgot to point out the pro for the con for the East. Con for the East, Rangers. We were in 22nd, 19-19-2. Could have done better. Anyone who's seen the Stanley Cup playoffs 2013-14 knows, but I'm not gonna release any spoilers if anybody hasn't seen them. Just in case, don't hate on me for that. Now the pro for the West, still Chicago, 28-7-7, still in first place. Anaheim 2 points behind them, and Anaheim was at one point. I'm not going to do anything. Okay, so for now the con for the West, Edmonton. Come on, 29th place, 13-24-4 with only 30 points. Come on, most teams in the league right now have over 60. Come on, step it up. Now let's get to January. January, of course. Now, here's the pro for the East. Still Pittsburgh. Because they were at 38, 14, and 2. 78 points. Third place in the entire league. First place in the Eastern Conference. Now, the con for January? Florida. 21, 26, and 7. 54 games played. We all know that. That was in the season. Now, you think that Florida would suck because they haven't made the playoffs in a while. This year, though, terrible. Absolutely terrible. Okay? Now the pro for the Western Conference, Anaheim. 40, 11, and 5. Now they're in the first place in the Eastern Conference. Or, no, not Eastern Conference, the league. And the Western Conference. I apologize again. I always make mistakes. Everybody does. Okay. Let's get to February. Now, the pro for the East, once again, Pittsburgh. 40, 15, and 4. 84 points. You would think that because Pittsburgh, and I know a lot of people hate on Sidney Crosby, he's a very good player. I just think he's a whiny crybaby. Don't hate me for that. I mean, he's a very good player, plays very well, has a lot. He's very good, but it's just he cries a lot. He whines every time he should have a penalty. He whines, and I don't know. Now, con for the East, Philadelphia, 30, 24, and 6. I mean, I know they're doing good. I know they were doing good at the time, but still, no, like, I've seen Philadelphia have better teams than this. I mean, come on. You know? Alright. Now, the pro for the West, again, Anaheim. 41, 14, and 5. Their record was amazing. They absolute powerhouse at this season. Ryan Getzlaf, Corey Perry. We all know those players. They had absolute talent. Absolute perfect talent this year. They were so good. They're a great duo, and everybody in Anaheim is gonna miss Teemu Selanne. Now, let's get to March. March. Oh man. Boston. An absolute powerhouse in March. Powerhouse. They did so well. They went on a 12-game winning streak, which was snapped by the Habs on the 24th of March, which I went to one of those, and I went to that game on March 24th, which was my first Bruins game. I loved it. They lost. And Boston was the first one to clinch playoff spot. And now the con for the East in that time, Carolina. Carolina Hurricanes are that one team that can do good, one year, and then not do good that next year. I've seen Carolina do good. This year they did not. In the East. Now, pro for the Western Conference, St. Louis. St. Louis was in second place with a 50, 17, and 7 record. Now, I like St. Louis. They are pretty good, but they were doing very good at the time, and they were just a good team. The con, I'd have to say, is Vancouver. 34, 31, 11. I mean, nobody's been eliminated from playoff contention yet, but still, it's like, who's really gonna have to, who are they gonna have to bring in to make them better? Seriously. I just don't get it. I mean, Vancouver hasn't, a lot of people know that Vancouver didn't make the playoffs, but, I mean, Sorry for a spoiler if anybody didn't see the playoffs, but I know a lot of people did. So, it's not really a spoiler. Now, here we are in April. Pro, again, Boston. President's Trophy winners. Clinched the division, their conference, and the President's Trophy. Now, we all know that they were knocked out in the second round of the playoffs by Montreal. Montreal was a good team that year, and I'm not mad. I'm not mad about it. It's just, a lot of Bruins fans don't like it when they get eliminated at home, especially by the Habs. That's just not cool. And the con for Eastern in April was Washington. 38, 30, and 14 with 90 points, 1 point behind Dallas. 1 point behind Dallas. And you'd think that a team like Washington would make it better. But they didn't. They have the best captain in the league that anybody... They have one of the best captains in the league that anybody could ask for. And they still didn't make the playoffs. I mean, come on, they have Alex Ovechkin. Now, May 1st. Boston. Playoffs. They defeated Detroit 4-1 in the round, but still made it 4-1 in the playoffs. And then in the second round, they got knocked out 4-3 by Montreal. That was a good playoff run for the Boston. Thank you, Boston Bruins, for a good season. And now let's go to the Stanley Cup Finals. LA and New York. Who would have thought, huh? First time making the Stanley Cup Final in 20 years for the New York Rangers. It's just amazing that and I give my best. And I gave my best to LA because I like LA. I don't really like New York because I'm a Boston fan. Nobody really likes New York and Boston. But if I were to have to root for another Eastern Conference team, I would root for New York. But if they were still in the playoffs, I would never root for Montreal. It wouldn't happen. Now, finally, Stanley Cup winner was LA. LA did perfect in the series. They defeated New York in 5 games. And it was just... They defeated New York in 5 games. And because of that, they weren't the best team in the league, but they still won the Stanley Cup. Congratulations, LA. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. If you like this video, type it in the comments that you liked it. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.